A dark thought, but can we find out about the overdose? David Fellows or Joanna Robertson overdose. Let's see. Joanna Robertson or Fellows, right? Oop. Joanna Fellows was mentioned briefly a few times around the time of her death. The first time was about the discovery of her body. The second time, she had some other details about the night she disappeared. It reiterates some things that were mentioned in the News Time article about her son. She was a single mother who worked at a video rental store. She died of a drug overdose after stealing from the cash register. The rest of the details seem unimportant to your search. Are the conditions of her death even important to my search, technically? Beyond just being salacious? There are so many of these documents now. I almost knocked over my drink. Startled the shit out of me. Okay, This is more just casting a wide net and just trying to open up every single article that exists in the game, basically. So when I see stuff like that, I'm like, oh, that would be in the news. But in some of these cases, it does just explain exactly what it says on the tin. And in more words, but not necessarily more details. We saw both News Time articles. Parents were divorced. Yeah, Riley is not in the news. I click every single wrong tab sometimes. It is concerning. We don't know enough about her, so we don't know if she had a drug habit. I just think about how, like, she moved to Portland because she was afraid for her and her son's life. She was receiving threats from the father. We don't get to read what that letter said. That's all rough. So I think about, like, Better Call Saul, basically, where I'm like, what if this is all... What if she was, like, hunted down in some way? Oh no. Box hidden in the back of her closet. Inside were love letters and photos related to Guy Hudson, as well as a letter from his father containing threats. Riley and Joanna Fellows. All your problems with the first and only single released. I think we've already looked into that. It's easy to look up again. Celebrity lawyer Stevie Whitlock. Did I already look into this? Stevie Whitlock is a lawyer with a history of publicity stunts and grandstanding. Still, she's managed to rack up quite a few legal victories for C-list celebrities and athletes. She became famous in the mid-1980s after successfully suing a multinational sandwich company whose 12-inch subs were actually an average of 11.5 inches long. Stevie argued that since the company sold 1 billion sandwiches per year, that was enough missing sandwiches to make a sub long enough to span New York to Los Angeles. The jury awarded her paltry $5,000, but the news coverage of her crusade turned out to be priceless. Unfortunately, none of this seems to be related to the Rootrees. Well, what about in the local news? No. Well, I'm trying to get anything else out of this guy. Like, 5Ps is such a lightning rod of news for this thing and kicked off all of Roottreemania, but he might just be a really uninteresting and not very deep storyline that does not really contain anyone else, really. Like, doesn't, like, you hope for a web. You hope for it to be like the diaries last time. Music Monthly. Dirte Devil. Dirt Poor. Yeah, none of his music's really gonna come up. All the performers, okay, that's the Fountain of Youth. So we know that Ruby Spratt is an alumni of the foster care system. Which might be worth moving. Let's see. Oh, right. Sorry, I've got my order of operations wrong. So you delete it here. And go to Clansed Trust, which is where Ruby's stuff is. Then you can add it there. Now it'll be in the Clansed Trust. We went into her valedictorian speech. They had a lawsuit against Sisley Sanchez. Funnily enough, I have like a 1 or 2 day gap between my recordings, so I'm like, my memory might be a little bit worse than usual. I had such a good streak for the first game, but then I did the, for the DLC, I did like 1 session, and then I went off to a convention and came back. Yeah, this, I think we looked into Sisley's books and we were able to find much about them. I think I'm gonna go ahead and start fresh with another one of these headings. Anonymom. Because we already like looked into Roottreemania in sort of a de facto way. Anonymom and Jane Doe Roottree. Anonymom is its own tab. I'll move it down here to find it more easily. In July, anonymous woman, who the press began to refer to as Anonymom, appeared in interviews with her face and voice disguised. She claimed to have an affair with the Roottree that led to the birth of her daughter, aka Jane Doe Roottree. If true, this would make her daughter yet another secret Roottree, and therefore entitled to the share of the Clansed Trust. Nobody knew at the time, but this would turn out to be the last chapter of the Roottreemania saga. As more and more of the Anonymom story came out, people began to notice how much it echoed 5Ps in nearly every significant way. The court of public opinion began to turn, confirming the world's suspicions. The DNA test, orchestrated by lawyers of both sides, proved that her daughter was not a Roottree. Why would you agree to a DNA test if you knew it was going to be wrong? Unless you didn't know it was going to be wrong. This final event caused public disappointment, smugness from doubters, and countless accusations on the entire ordeal being an elaborate hoax or attempt at fraud. Things got a bit ugly, and the fun of Roottreemania seemed to disappear overnight. Now, a month later, it feels like a distant memory. Okay, well, let's find out what we can find out about this person. And maybe in some way it'll be true anyway or something, I don't know. What if Anonymom's the Roottree, but her daughter is not actually hers? What am I talking about? Anonymom was the second high-profile case after Felix Fellows of a potential new Roottree being added to the Clansed Trust. Instead of claiming herself a Roottree, however, she claimed she'd slept with Guy Hudson and that her daughter was a Roottree. The accusation came during the height of Roottreemania and began with a brief TV interview. She appeared in the shadows with a disguised voice and promoted an article about herself in News Time. I want to add that. I'm going to look into that in a minute. Might even just want to look it up right now, actually. There we go. It'll give us a photo, too. In the TV interview and article, she referred to her daughter as Jane Doe Roottree. The name Anonymom was not self-inflicted. It seemed to spring up organically because nobody knew how else to refer to her. The day after the News Time article, Sam Manson publicly supported Anonymom due to some parts of the story she found particularly incredible. Within the momentum of Sam's endorsement, when Anonymom went on a media blitz, ultimately this backfired as more details came out. People became skeptical of her story due to the extreme similarity to 5P's. Her accusation even included many of the same details as his mother's story. This included her job, secretary, and the time period, the late 70s. Well, he did that a lot. He might have slept with 5 secretaries that decade. He is just a repetitive guy. Let's see. Extreme similarity to 5Ps. After fumbling the 5P story so publicly, the Rootrees were more prepared to handle all Clansed Trust related cases. Within a week, a DNA test proved that Anonymom's daughter could not be related to the Rootrees. This was announced at a joint press conference with lawyers representing both Anonymom and the Rootrees. Each party ensured their respective clients provided accurate samples. Immediately after the negative results were released, many of those who had already been skeptical felt vindicated. Others, who had built up hope that the history could repeat itself after 5Ps, felt duped. Many people suspected the whole affair had been a hoax to gain fame and money. Many demanded that Anonymom be held accountable, and some people even began to attempt to track down her true identity, which apparently is my job right now, too. I wonder if I'm going to find out that Anonymom was a plant by the Roottrees in order to ruin Roottreemania by having a high-profile false flag that they did themselves. Because that would be... It worked, and they literally hired a PR company, so that's... Oh, what if that's what I blow open with this whole thing? The Roottree company felt pressured to put out a second statement to try to curb some of the backlash, even going so far as to say that though it was scientifically proven that Jane Doe Roottree is not a Roottree, this doesn't mean that her mother and Guy Hudson were not involved in an affair. She had every right to make her claim, as it has been verified that her stories about Guy Hudson were not exaggerations. Please leave her family alone. It's been verified. So she did actually sleep with Guy Hudson. Okay. That's going to be relevant, probably. Many people claim this high-profile anti-climax and public backlash was the beginning of the end of Roottreemania, since much of the fun was the shared fascination about secret root trees. Others think that, like any fad, it just ran its course naturally. Regardless, this was the final notable event related to the release of 6 pieces, and things soon went back to normal. It was the final event, but it was only a month ago. So, like, that's a brave claim. That's a brave claim to make about the past, like it's history, when history was a month ago. Jane Doe Roottree has already been eliminated as a potential new Roottree by the company's lawyers, who are the ones verifying your work. Anonymous affair does not appear on your updated tree. It's not on the tree. Okay. So I don't need to worry about figuring out where to put them, apparently. This is suspiciously over here, though. So last time we learned that the top secret folder represents a specific location on the tree. So that'll be curious. I wonder if it'll be a new root tree, or if it'll specifically be related to one of these people, like Mary Clementine's secret sibling or something. I don't know. I definitely wondered if any of the stuff tied to Anonymom would be relevant, but it might be that Anonymom was a hoax. I mean, she was literally a hoax, but I mean, like, I wonder if the hoax was a hoax. That'd be interesting. That would be interesting. The final affair. This is not Anonymom necessarily, because even if he had a bunch of affairs with people, it being the last Roottreemania story does not mean it's the last affair he had chronologically. The order in which they come out is not related to the order in which they occurred. Click on the face. Wow! Here we go again, another claim to the famous name. So the faces are blurred, which makes them extremely bad as a article cover. It was determined through a DNA test that Anonymom's daughter was not a Roottree. This article, which did refer to her daughter as Jane Doe Roottree but did not coin the phrase Anonymom, came before all that, right around the time of her first TV interview. This is a summary. It's a bad news that it's bad sign that there's not even an hourglass here. Not an hourglass. Magnifying glass. An anonymous woman appeared on the cover of News Time shortly after 5Ps was confirmed to be a member of the Roottree family. In an homage to the previous cover, she holds a photo of her daughter. Unlike 5P, she wished to remain anonymous, and both photos were obscured. Not a great cover. I feel like they could have shown anything else at that point. The anonymous woman claimed to have had an affair with Guy Hudson while she was working as his secretary. She and another woman were hired at the same time during a transition period, while many of the secretaries that had worked under Zach Morton were already gone. I think I can figure out who she is from the yeah, because I have the employee history that other people don't have. She says that she and the other one were both underqualified and neither had typewriter experience. Oh, that's like the thing you do. That's like the one thing. According to other staff members interviewed, Guy had his own requirements for hiring women. Guy doesn't like to throw lavish parties, and the longer he was present, the more excuses he found. The anonymous woman posits that these parties mostly seem to be an excuse to have after parties at Guy's house, featuring much more alcohol and other substances. She claims she slept with him at one of these after parties. She confronted Guy when she found out she was pregnant. Guy didn't seem fazed, and they came to an arrangement. He paid her a significant amount of hush money on a regular basis, under the table. Guy didn't seem fazed, that's wild. She used it to move away and start a new life with her daughter. When Guy died, the money stopped coming, and she assumed that things had run their course. She went back to work at the department store and hoped that nobody would ever look too closely at how she paid for her house. She told everyone that her daughter's father walked out one day and never came back. She claimed that after seeing the fantastic article in News Time, she realized that she wasn't the only one this happened to. While she never worked at the Roottree company at the same time as Five Piece's mother, Joanna, their stories... Oh. That helps me narrow it down. I can find out exactly who she is, probably. Their stories were eerily similar, and she knew Felix was telling the truth right away. The article presented no tangible evidence of the anonymous woman's time at Roottree, and all of the payments were allegedly made in cash. However, using details that she provided to News Time, the reporters were able to reach out to the other woman hired at the same time, who also remained anonymous. They successfully fact-checked the timeline of both women and confirmed the existence of the infamous after-parties. Five Piece's case was strengthened, and this new story was subsequently published. Interesting. They're doing actual investigative journalism. And not just repeating press releases like some people do. It's so informative that it's like, she confronted Guy when she found out she was pregnant, and Guy didn't seem fazed. Like, yeah, here we go again. So it wasn't one of the first pregnancies, that's for sure, because it's apparently happened enough at that point that multiple one of these were already in progress. They specifically said that this name does not show up on my chart, but I do still feel compelled to solve who it is, since they give me the pieces as far as I can tell. Alright, so the main things. She was hired at the same time as another woman during a transition period while many of the secretaries that had worked for Zach Morden were already gone. She had never worked at the same time as Five Piece's mother, Joanna. Okay. So Joanna and Beth Knox are no longer employed at Roottree, starting in 1977. After that, Christine Garland is gone. Beatrice Waltz and Corrine Schwartz were hired. That's two names. Juliet McCullen and Doris Mays no longer employed. Oh, 1979. Lisa Lewis and Valerie Ewing were hired. Many of the secretaries were no longer there. Makes me want to make one of those charts. Which is probably the easiest way to do this, is to write down all the names in this thing and then actually show their starting and end points. It makes me want to make those charts that you see when you look up a band on Wikipedia that has like a long history and members swapping in and out over time. Is that they have this this thing that shows you a horizontal progression where like the y-axis is every member that's ever performed with the band, and the x-axis is time, and you can just see with a line how long when they started being in the band and when they left, when they maybe rejoined in some cases, whether they were a recording musician or just a touring musician. It gets complicated with some bands. This is one chart that you see a lot with bands specifically on Wikipedia, and it would be one of the easiest ways to probably process this. I say easy, it'd probably take me a half an hour to make. Oh my god, how many of them are hired in twice? Lisa Lewis and Linda Lewis. And those are different people? It says hired, not that the names were changed. Lisa is no longer working there. Guy Hudson died. Okay, that's gonna be a little hard. So we have Beatrice Watts and Corinne Schwartz, Lisa Lewis and Valerie Ewing, and then Linda Lewis and Angela Ingram. There's 3 times that 2 women were hired in the same year under this administration, and you don't get to know when they were hired. So you hear that they were hired at the same time, but it doesn't actually say when they were hired beyond the year, which is not actually very specific. Shit. And then they fired everybody. The secretaries were... Let's see. Zach's secretaries were Juliet McCullen, Joanna Robertson, Doris Mays, and Beth Knox. Let's maybe look into when each of these people left. Problem is that the thing says when many of them weren't there anymore, which doesn't say all of them, so it's really hard to narrow this down. Joanna Robertson, Joanna Fellows, and Beth Knox. That's getting a little elaborate here. Juliet McCullen were Joanna Robertson, who was Fellows till 1977. Doris Mays, Beth Knox till 1977. Christine Farrow. It's just up there. We don't care about her remarrying. I mean, we did earlier, but she's not part of this. Christine Garland is no longer working for the Roottrees. That's not even one of my names. She must have joined later. Juliet McCullen and Doris Mays. Okay, so it's like 50-50. Juliet McCullen. Yeah, until 1979. And Dorothy Mays. Many were already gone. It's possible they were hired. No. Secretaries. They could meet now, but that's not a very strong claim because that'd be 2 of them are gone and 2 of them are still here. But like, I don't know what to do with many. That's such a vague term. But if we go past this point, Linda Lewis and Angela Ingram were hired after all of Zach's secretaries were gone. So we might just want to assume that it's one of those 2, because it's really messy otherwise. But it's hard to know what to do with that. It's also hard to know which one. So that's just 2 women hired alongside each other. I guess we can look into when each of them were fired, but wasn't it just at the same time? Yeah. The 2 of them and a 3rd woman stopped working when they stopped having secretaries. Which, if I go back to this, throw lavish parties. Okay, she used it to move away and start a new life with her daughter, and then when Guy died, the money stopped coming. But isn't this document about him? Doesn't he die? And that's what? Doesn't he? Yeah. So she wasn't fired when Guy died. So it must be the second group. Let's go back 1 year. Lisa Lewis and Valerie Ewing, because Beatrice Watson, Corey, and Schwartz are too soon. I wish that it was easier to change pages on these documents when you're like these little pips could just be on this side of the screen, and then I can keep my notes open and then review them next to each other. But instead, it's a pain in the ass. They both hired in 1979 and left in 1981. They both worked for 2 years, both left at the same time, which makes them hard to narrow down which one's which. I think we're able to figure out who Anonymom is, because I feel like the other woman is going to also have an affair. I think that's how we narrow it down. I think that this might be them being like, who's Anonymom? It's like it's floating over here. It specifically does not connect up here, seemingly. Which means it might not have a root tree. It might genuinely be a non-heir. But they might want me to solve it because it's interesting to solve. So then based on that, they might just want me to figure out who Anonymom was, which could be fun. And I might be able to figure out who she is if I can figure out, if I find out that the other woman happened to also be in one of these affairs over here, because I think everyone else here is listed. I'm trying to figure out how to like find Christine Farrow's face. Let's see, Stephen Garland. Let's look into this fucking this cool restaurant. How far back was that? Friday. Right, because their dad was a chef, right? Stephen Garland. Yeah, Steve Garland was in the book. That whole book mess. Boston. I was in Boston like a year ago. That's not very helpful. I needed to be from Portland. I need to be Portland. Do I have a food one yet? Chef signature. Oh, that's probably, yeah, Friday. But I didn't have chef signature yet. So Steve Garland in chef signature, maybe. Garland with an A. No! Stephen Garland. No. No. Only one of Antonelli's has ever been featured in Chef's Signature. It's called Antonelli's Attic. They're a dessert restaurant that serves a variety of dishes meant to evoke neglected parts of the house. This includes their signature dish, Cobweb Cobbler, which uses candy floss atop a blackberry pie. They also have a cheesecake they call the Dust Bowl, which is served in a mason jar and has a very finely crushed cookie atop it. As delicious as it all sounds, the restaurant doesn't seem as related to your search in any way. No! Give me progress. How do I find faces of people? I don't know what to do. How do you find Christine Farrow's face? Guy Hudson in local periodical. This is an old article, so that's not helpful. Foul play was not suspected. Did I ever read this the original time? Although the Butler County Times does not archive their obituaries, they did a front page story in 1982 about Guy Hudson and his wife Patricia dying in a car accident. The story itself is surprisingly light on relevant details due to the recency of the accident. Police report that the crash was caused by an unidentified driver who swerved in front of Hudson's car, causing them to brake hard and veer off the interstate. That sounds a bit like a murder. Although Guy was a somewhat controversial president, foul play is not suspected. There were witnesses who reported the vehicle which instigated the wreck was speeding, swerving between lanes and cutting off drivers as well as for at least 5 or 6 minutes before the tragic accident. One witness says it could have been any one of us who they eventually ran off the road. The aggressor fled after the accident, and the police have few leads other than make and model. Guy had been the president of Roottree Company for only 4 years, though he undoubtedly volatile period in the company's history. He has his wife and no children. Ha 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 ha. Alright. Not exactly. Let's see. And a Miracle Roottree, maybe. Miracle Roottree and his son, who goes exclusively by Miracle Jr., have appeared in Butler County Times a great deal over the years. The Miracle Network, which is a collection of churches, television shows, and products, can be purchased, has multiple advertisements in each issue. You do find one article mentioning legal troubles. Unfortunately, it's a throwaway line in an article about a tour they plan to take across the southern United States called the 3 Generation of Miracles tour. The author speculates they're going on tour to leave their legal troubles behind. Because of all the advertisements, the results of Butler County Times are not particularly relevant to your search. Any attempts to find more about these legal troubles is thwarted. How do you make progress in this game? Okay, having a rough time here. Okay, so I've looked into every one of these things. Oh god, there's only one clue remaining in the entire document. Okay. I don't know what the fuck to do with this. It says there's 8 clues here. But it's a conspiracy mag. It's a fucking tabloid, so like they're nonsense. Picotee magazine. Have I looked into Picotee magazine, but just in the normal search? Ah. Huh. Picotee magazine is a publication that, as far as you can tell, has no consistent theme. It tends to contain tabloid-esque articles that appeal to a wider variety of audiences and appears on many grocery stores near the checkout line. This sounds new. Not necessarily new information yet, but I think this is new words. So I think I just went straight to looking at it. Unlike traditional tabloids, it doesn't typically feature celebrities on the cover. Instead, it tends to latch onto and create sensationalist headlines about whatever subject appears to be popular at any given time. In recent years, this has included Beanie Babies, Magic Eye images, and even Red Bull. These are just names. These are just actual real-life names, way more than I'm used to. It has often come under fire for printing fiction along with facts. Picotee gets around this by stating in every issue that all of its articles are all the hearsay that's fit to print. At one point, Picotee ran an article about Cicely Sanchez, an author. She claims to have written an unread book about Guy Hudson. That article was not even the main focus of the issue, yet the magazine was threatened legally by the Roottree Corporation. That particular issue, the Big Sass Sea Bass issue, was pulled from shelves. It has now become a collector's item, especially amongst conspiracy theorists attempting to figure out what the Roottree company was hiding. You could find a recently finished online auction that listed a copy of over $1,000, but though nobody bid. Ooh. Can I look into that auction? Big Sass Sea Bass is a talking fish that sits on a fake mount. Am I insane, or was that like hard to read? Okay, yeah, the name of the article, that name doesn't show up anywhere on here. So I don't know how we know that. I was like, Basselbub? I tried searching that. So I was on the right path trying to search the article's name, thinking it would do something. But Big Sass Sea Bass isn't listed here. I guess you can only know that by opening the book and seeing that page is named that instead of this. Big Sass Sea Bass is a talking fish that sits on a fake mount on your wall. When you press the button and speak to it, it mimics your voice and then insults you. Many people consider it a ripoff of a more popular well-mounted communication-based fish decoration, but this back package makes it clear that this one does not sing. Okay. I was like, this does just sound like a singing bass, yeah. Instead, what the advertisements say set Big Sass Sea Bass apart from its competitors is a sardonic and sarcastic wit that will leave you reeling with laughter. It's oceans of fun for the whole family. You'll be hooked on this big sassy bass. The words reeling, oceans, and hooked are conveniently bolded to ensure you recognize how clever the copywriter was. We're just negging this guy actively. Recently appeared on the cover of Picotee magazine. In the same issue that a Roottree related article appeared. That issue was removed from stores after Roottree sued the magazine. The issue has become a collector's item ripe for conspiracy theories about what the Roottrees are trying to keep from people. Okay, none of this is helpful. But auction? Let's go back to articles. An online auction that no one bid on. I don't think that's a thing I can look into. In an issue that focused on talking toy fish and a demonic message supposedly says on batteries and low. I think we've read this all before. They didn't tell me the online auction website, so I can't like look it up on eBay or whatever. So checking a few places, but I don't think that's going to help me much. What are the clues? There's 8 clues? Maybe it's the utensil that'll help me lose 50 pounds. Maybe that's where I need to look. Okay, so... Cicely Sanchez, Guy Hudson. It's just not... I don't have any reason to think that they were in a relationship with him. Can I get anything more about these people, though? Yes, that's not gonna count. It would not hurt just to check every publication for Guy Hudson real quick because of how much he fucking comes up in our story. We just want to do a universal search on this fucker. Yeah, that's the one we don't know about. This is the bit about 5Ps. Do we have a God book? None of these are religious, right? Signature. This just says death. Business watch. Guy Hudson, along with his twin sister, are no strangers to the public when it comes to Roottree snacks. They both appeared in the company's advertisements as children during the Boys and Girls era, Boys and Girls Agree era. Now Guy is taking over the Roottree company at the end of the year. That should be the source of this ad I never found. I somehow never just sat here and looked up every president. I mean, I looked them up in some way, but not necessarily on here. Who could have known that one of those two adorable redheads, Guy credits his mother and father, Angie and Christopher, with providing his fiery due, arguing over everything but chocolate, would grow up to take over the whole company. Guy's uncle and current president, Zachariah, has decided to take an early retirement to focus on traveling the world with his wife. Zach was quoted as saying, "Now that our daughters have started families of their own, Clara and I plan to reflect on a life well lived." Guy is new to the business world, but he's family. We at Roottree have faith in his innovative ideas, and he's eager to share them with the world. We like to think that Boys and Girls Agree, that he's ready to succeed. Okay, the Boys and Girls Agree. So that's just apparently a slogan they just would not chill with back then, and they just brought up constantly. So he's the third president, Zachariah Morden. In 1959, there's a small blurb about Zach Morden, son of James and Gwendolyn Morden, and grandson to Elias Roottree, inheriting the candy company. Helpful names here. He is quoted as saying, "Elias entrusted me with carrying on his legacy, and that's what I plan to do. Along with 5 pieces, our chocolate maple products are selling incredibly well. We will not be making any changes." Then local. Nothing locally. See, this is what throws me off, is there's entire presidents that don't have local news. Elias Roottree. He appears a lot. It's just basic Google stuff. Business Watch? Watchman of the Year. Yeah, we knew about that. Okay. It's funny that it still says stuff has been added to your evidence when that's actually just the built-in text of the previous article and no longer actually applies. Ernest Madsen Jr. An article from 1982 announces that Ernest Madsen Jr. is taking over the day-to-day operations of Roottree after the previous president died unexpectedly. Little is known about Ernest, but sources close to the family who have asked to remain anonymous have made it clear that he is more than qualified. There are rumors that Ernest had originally trained to succeed Zach Morden, but had been passed up for unspecified reasons. Probably the fact that he's treated like a fake family member. I looked away and now I lost where that part of the screen was. Business Watch also managed to get a quote from the company publicist. "The last 4 years at Roottree have been rough. In an attempt to keep our products relevant to the modern audiences, some of our decisions have had unintended consequences. From the fancy flavors misstep to the batter up bar, we've taken a bit of a tumble in the public eye, but Mr. Madsen is committed to getting us back to the basics." Then nothing local. I think the last one is Carl Roottree. Yeah, back to an easy name. But I guess all of his stuff's gonna be about how he died with his wife Brenda. Yeah. Same. Oop. Yep, nothing else to go from there. Okay. I need to think of a new lead, or I am going to be in trouble.